okay, let's just make the assumption that in our lifetime, porn is not going to go away. How can we protect the innocent? That's my
Mm,
perspective of this. That's just me being a realist, but me also saying, okay, I don't think it's going away in my lifetime. However, we can absolutely eradicate child sex abuse material. Like, this should be done yesterday. There's no excuse for that to
yeah.
exist.
Yeah.
And then point two, how can we protect the innocent? So we're talking about adults. How can we make sure they are of age and consenting to that content being posted in the first place and living there in all of its eternity? So, welcome to the Digital Defenders United podcast. I'm your host, Kim Kelley, and today we have a powerful conversation lined up for you. So, I'm excited to introduce Miss Victoria Sinis. She's a courageous advocate, and she's the founder of Creating Gems. It's a platform dedicated to empowering women and raising awareness about the darker side of online exploitation. Victoria's journey from the world of social media and adult content recruitment to becoming a voice for change is nothing short of inspiring. So, in this episode, we'll dive deeper into her personal experiences and discuss the harsh realities of online grooming and exploitation, and explore how we can protect and empower our children and young people in today's digital world. Victoria, I've really been looking forward to this. Thank you so much for being here. And would you please start out with just a brief introduction of what you want people to know about you and your work today?
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you so much for having me, Kim. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. Yeah, I guess as mentioned, my name is Victoria. I'm 26 years old. I'm from Melbourne, Australia, born and raised. And about a year ago, I've just gone on this transformational journey, I guess you could say. I worked for an OnlyFans agencies where I would recruit and market girls to OnlyFans. Through that experience, I had basically a whole entire life change. And now, almost a year later, we're talking about all of that type of stuff. We're doing our best to try and expose the reality of OnlyFans and this over sexualized culture that we live in. And yeah, just trying to help, I guess.
Yeah, bring some truth to it. I love it.
Yeah.
And I also love that it's so necessary to have voices who have really experienced these things involved
Mm,
in this conversation when we talk about the problems and the solutions. That's why one of my goals with my nonprofit is to unite the experts, not only in a solutions oriented conversation, but that so that we can get real about the problems and the solutions.
mm.
Because people from the outside may think they know how to solve some of these problems, and they can absolutely help. But without the expertise of the people with lived experience, it's hard to truly solve these problems that are actually quite complex and involve a lot of layers.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
in my realm, I'm a survivor of child trafficking. I was born and raised in an international religious cult. So the first 20 years of my life was all forms of cult abuse, including child trafficking.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm coming from this not only with a very fueled passion, right? Like,
Mm,
I have very dark humor. I choose to laugh in the face of this evil because it's the biggest middle finger you can give to your abusers.
mm,
I take being a voice for the voiceless very seriously because I've been in that realm where children don't have a safe advocate or a safe adult in their entire existence. And there's a lot of things being manipulated and very obviously abusive and traumatizing for children. Now, today, my focus is protecting children and their innocence in the digital realm.
yeah.
Because, first of all, pretty much every child has access to the internet and various devices. And in this modern day, I've worked with local and federal law enforcement and multiple nonprofit organizations and groups working undercover as a junior undercover decoy, basically pretending to be a child on the internet in order to identify predators and take them down. So I've also seen very recently in various states and cities in the United States what children see on the internet, the predation that they're faced with, how aggressive it is, how bad it is, and how little these platforms are doing to protect children.
Mm,
So it's a complex discussion. And again, I'm coming at this as a realist, also as a survivor advocate, and also as okay, what problems can we solve? I understand the profit driven approach of these tech giants. I
mm.
understand the algorithms and the marketing and the social media addiction and all those components of it. But here's one thing we can all agree on: children deserve protection.
Mm,
In my opinion, there's no cost too great when it comes to protecting children. Children cannot unsee predation or adult sexual entertainment. So I come at this as well from a place of knowing that there are many adults who choose lifestyles that I don't choose, but that they're allowed to choose. So whether that's adult sexual entertainment, there are adults that I know personally who do that consensually, who even say they enjoy it. And to me, that's their freedom, and that's not my battle. My mission is to protect children, and there is a massive difference from adult sexual entertainment and child exploitation. Those two things should not exist in the same sentence.
Mm,
There's nothing sexual about a child. There's nothing pornographic about a child. I reject the term child pornography. It is child sex abuse material. Separately, there's adult entertainment. However, in that world, as you and I know, there can be a lot of exploitation. There are a lot of innocent adults who need advocacy and attention and support. So I'm not coming from this in a, adult sexual entertainment is bad, we need to make it go away, because I know it will never go away. But how can we make it safe? How can we protect
mm,
the innocent? And most importantly, in my opinion, how can we protect children completely from the topic, from the industry, from that content?
mm.
So it's
Yeah.
a complex discussion. I want your thoughts on that initial premise of this viewpoint, because not I don't see a lot of people separating those two things, child sexual abuse material from adult sexual entertainment.
Yeah, yeah. I think one thing, I was like, I think there is a lot of hope. I genuinely do, in my heart of hearts, absolutely believe that the porn industry will be a thing of the past. I don't condone adults in any capacity doing any type of sex work. And I really do believe that we're on the path to be able to see this over sexualized culture and pornography in any capacity and any type of sex work gone and abolished. So I'm really, really, really hopeful for that, because I think that the ramifications that that has on society as a whole is just absolutely horrific. And it is such a great point to make, though, about the fact that we do advocate for, I guess, the protection of adults and everything. We also need to understand how important this issue is for our children. And for me, I guess the catalyst of me coming around and out of the world that I was in was the fact that I remember sitting there. So, yeah, used to work for an OnlyFans agency where I would recruit and market girls to the platform. And I have 10 nieces and nephews under the age of under the age of 3, under the age of 7, under the age of 3. And I have about 6 of those, 6 or 7 of them are little girls that are under the age of 3. And what was kind of that point for me where everything snapped was I was sitting there one day on my laptop, and I was looking at one of these girls that we were representing. And I realized that one of my little nieces would grow up and look exactly like this girl when she was older. And it was kind of this moment that it clicked in my mind. And I went, oh my gosh, like, if my niece did this job, I would be devastated. And then I went, but that's someone's niece. If my brother's daughter did this, my brother would be devastated. But that's someone's daughter. Why is it okay that she's doing this? I never want to live in a world where my little nieces grow up and think that their only value and their only worth is to sell themselves online. And that was really where I started to seek answers. And that's where I really started to have that, I guess, veil lifted from my eyes, that this is a positive, that this is something that we should be glorifying. Um, and that's where the journey really began for me. So I definitely deeply align on that and have it in my heart that we need to do so much to be able to build a better world for our children, because no little girl deserves to grow up in any capacity and either be exposed to this type of stuff or to grow up in a world where they think that their only value is to be this sexual being. And then also our little boys as well never ever deserve to grow up being, prematurely exposed to pornography, be a slave to the addiction of pornography, and to have their viewpoint warped and manipulated on what they think a woman is, and to have their relationships destroyed. So, just to kind of circle back, I guess, to something about I'm really big on like actionables and things that are in our control. And it seems like you're that way too. And we do talk about social media companies and the responsibility that's on them. But I think that to take it a step back further, there's so many things that are in our control and in our power that we can do in our everyday lives. Every single person. This isn't an us and them issue, that it's for the advocates, it's for the government, it's for this. Actually, no, it's for every single person in every single home. And the beauty in that is if all of us take action, then it actually kind of mitigates the pressure to a small capacity on these social media companies, because I've read stuff or whatever and seen that a lot of them say like that's not our role and responsibility. And it's like, okay, well, if that's how you perceive things, that's fine. But let's be proactive in this and not just sit there and try and knock on a door that might not necessarily open. And so some of the things that I think are really invaluable that we can do, just to kind of, I guess, like kick it off, for parents that are listening or anything like that, is the first and foremost important thing for children is to actually open up the door to have these conversations. And it can be as simple as that. I was reading oh, what was it called? But basically, just an Australian government website, I guess you could say. And they actually even start to have programs for under 5 years old. And I think that a lot of people may be like, "Under 5? What do you mean?" But does your two-year-old know how to open up your iPhone? Does your two-year-old know how to go on the iPad? Does your two-year-old know how to get onto YouTube? And the study that was done said that, I think it was something astonishing, like a 80 or 90, I can fact check this for you, of course, percent of 4-year-olds, if they saw a pop-up, they would click it. And so a lot of pop-ups that pop up is porn. I've even personally seen them. I've seen hardcore anime porn pop up, any type of thing. And so imagine that these young children are seeing anime porn pop up and they think that it's a cartoon, and then they're watching hardcore sex. So these things are realities and these are things that are happening. And so I think that we just kind of need to, be brutally honest and open about that, especially to parents, and go, okay, these things are happening. So the younger that you can educate them, the better. And so, how do you do that? And my sister in law is actually a psychologist, and she deals with a lot of children that have been, in trauma and stuff like that. And this was really interesting. And I think I didn't even think of this point. I've been kind of trying to figure out how you can have these conversations with children myself and from understanding. And I was like, maybe, you say to like young children about like red flag zones or something like that. So then you can identify these things. And my sister-in-law was actually telling me that no, because there's so many alternative words that are used for people's private parts, flower or whatever, that when a child actually does experience sexual abuse, it actually minimizes the likelihood of people taking them serious or not really understanding what they're saying, because they're like, someone touched this. And so they go, oh, like, someone touched my red flag zone or my flag. She goes, we need to start identifying things correctly, because if a child comes up to you, and this is, I know I'm talking about two different things right now, but it all ties in together of why we need to do this. If we can start to use the correct language around our children, then if a 3-year-old comes up to you and says, someone touched my penis, you're going to go, oh, you're not going to go, someone touched my red flag zone. You're going to, and so the whole point of that is to say that unfortunately in the day and age that we live in, we need to be having these conversations using the correct words, and the correct terminology for things, because if we don't, it's actually going to be a detriment to our children. And so I think that one of the wisest things that parents can do is sit down, open up that conversation with their kids and start to say, if you see something on the iPad, on the internet, that doesn't make you feel good, and they'll know what that means. That makes you scared, that makes you confused, that makes you feel embarrassed, that makes you feel shame. You come and you tell me, and we'll talk about it. And so then the child knows, okay, if I see this, I'm not going to feel weird and then hold all this shame and like all of this. I can come and I can talk to my mum or my dad about this, or a safe person, whoever that is. And just that simple step can mitigate so much, because then you can sit down as an adult and go, okay, well, do you understand why we don't? Like, I understand you've seen this, but let me tell you why we don't watch this stuff, why this stuff is bad, why that's made you feel that way, and what the correct context in where what sex should be, what it's a part, and we can start to educate them, because again, this mitigates such a huge risk, because I think like prevention is better than cure. So I think that that's just one very long-winded, but one very simple, I guess, tool that we can start doing, or something that I recommend to parents, just to be able to help protect their children. The younger, it's the better to have these conversations. Digital literacy is so important, and it can be as simple as opening up those conversations, but also using the correct terminology and not being scared to do that and think that it's like above their years.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. I want to highlight and unpack a lot of the things you said, because there was a lot of
Yeah.
good things in there. So first of all, I think a lot of parents might cringe when we talk about talking to your children about this subject in general, and then
Mm,
talking to them at an early age. They're like, oh, my 8-year-old, oh, that's weird. Yes, and if they have access to the internet, it's a matter of time. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when they will see this type of content. So if you
Mhm.
would like a stranger to teach your child about this topic, or wouldn't it be better for you as a parent or guardian to be the one to broach this subject with your child, obviously in an age appropriate way? But believe me, if your child has access to the internet, it is only a matter of time that they will see something inappropriate. I want to unpack the responsibility of big tech companies because it's something I'm very involved with. But I also want to share a quick story. A friend of mine has like a 2 or 3-year-old toddler, very locked down. This mother is very aware, very overly protective, I would even say. And she had a kid tablet optimized for this child watching YouTube. And some video came up that led the child to watching porn. Now, this child is a toddler. The
Mm.
the iPad, the device knows this child is a toddler. They're on YouTube Kids. How did that go into porn? Like you're talking about these pop-ups and these ads. So that right there, like I'm pretty realistic as well about the responsibility, the shared responsibility. So we can
Mm.
talk more about what we can do to prevent children from having to heal from this. However, if you think it's a good idea to give your child access to the internet, know that whether or not you implement safeguards, there are predatory things aggressively targeting children, not only adult content, but on kid-friendly platforms. Like in this example, it was YouTube Kids. Now,
Mm.
let's talk about the responsibility of tech platforms. And I also want to talk about influencers and society and how kids see these examples of sexualized humans being cool and trendy and modeling their behavior in like manner to garnish attention, which in the kid's mind is social validation or social status. So let's talk about the responsibility of these tech companies because, for example, me operating undercover on these apps that are not dating apps or dark web apps. They are apps from the App Store that every child can download. Creating a profile with a baby face child, like a 10-year-old looking child, and within seconds of just creating a profile with a name, that is it. I filmed this because it's so horrific. It starts raining predators just flooding into my DMs. Everything from, hey, cutie pie, you're so cute. Do you have a boyfriend? To what would you do for $500 and beyond? To the most horrendous, violent things that would be inappropriate for an adult consensual relationship. So, pause
Mm.
right there, right? We all know that when we post on our social media certain words or terms that that platform maybe doesn't like or has a political bias about or whatever, maybe there's a little warning signal that comes up, or you get a notification that this post or word or term violates their community guidelines. We're all aware of that, correct? I've
Mm.
been live streaming on different social media apps and somebody mentions a political party, nothing to do with the actual subject, and a notice comes up about election. So my point is that
Yeah.
listen, and they have technology that can identify these words, correct?
Yeah.
Now, to my face, rhetorical question, when these pervs are using very descriptive words, like not even coded emojis, but describing their intent, and when we are telling them we are 12 and 13 years old in writing, I'm turning 13 next week, I'm baking cookies with my grandma, tell me to my face why these technologies are not being deployed to protect children. So,
Mm.
talk about the responsibility of tech companies. I'm not saying we are relying on them to protect our children. It is a shared responsibility. However, why did my friend's toddler go from some kiddie YouTube video to a porn video? Why would they target those platforms and devices that they know are owned by children? Why would
Mm.
they allow predators to target children without limitation on their platforms? Now, I've overthought the answer to this question, but I'm giving people food for thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me say it very directly, right? I'm very honest. And so
I love it.
I've got a little dark sense of humor, but I also am very intolerant to this evil. So I go right there.
Mm.
Here's the truth. There's no money in protecting children.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
there's a lot of money in exploiting children
Mm.
and symptoms that causes in our society. So we have a lot of hurt people hurting people.
Mm.
It also causes, so let's go into when children are taught to sexualize themselves. We're not saying over sexualize, sexualize, full stop, inappropriate for children. When children are, first of all, traumatized at an early age or sexualized or exposed to inappropriate content, specifically adult sexual entertainment type behavior, then it does change their brain. It does open them up to that world. Children are very curious. They are most likely not doing anything to attract the attention or doing anything wrong. But now that they are aware of that type of entertainment or interactions, it does change the way they see the world. And to your point, if we're showing children via social media influences and influencers that the more they do for attention from strangers on the internet, the more likes and hearts and
Mm,
social validation that they get, which in the real world means nothing. The followers, the hearts, it means nothing. But children have grown up in this era thinking that's their social status or even their value to the world.
mm.
They can career off that. They'll get to travel the world and be pretty in a bikini all over the place. But you and I know the darker side of that reality. So let's talk about not only the impact that influencers can have on young audiences and the importance of setting positive examples, healthy examples, real value, real worth,
Mm.
but also what responsibility do you think influencers have in promoting these healthy, realistic behaviors and attitudes, especially when their audience includes minors?
Yeah, it is. These are wild questions to be honest with, because it's so complex, isn't it? Like it's it's so simple, but it's so not simple. You know what I mean? Because it's like if this is going to be all over the shop, this answer, but if we can mitigate against so much of this, because those influencers that are out there right now influencing, who are being rewarded by the likes and the followers and the brand deals and all of that because they sexualize themselves, if we just stopped rewarding that. The thing is, in this industry that we're in and that we're advocating for, if the demand stopped, this industry just evaporates. If people just stopped liking those half naked pictures, if they just stopped following those girls that are doing that, if we stopped rewarding this behavior, then there's no enticement for these girls to continue doing it, because you're not going to do anything that doesn't give you a reward in this life. And so it's like this weird thing where it's like, if we can try and get people to understand that we need to stop rewarding this, then these people aren't going to do it anymore, then there's no demand for it, and then it's gone. And it's like, oh, that's so simple, but unfortunately it's not that simple. And so again, it goes into this multifaceted layer of, we can say to influencers as well of, do you understand the consequences of what you're doing? Do you understand the ramifications? I think of this very specific influencer here in Australia. Her name's Anna Paul. And she's one of our biggest TikTokers that we have. And she's one of our biggest OnlyFans girls here. And her main demographic is literally young girls. And she's now got skincare deals. She's got brand deals with all of it. And I'm like, you're literally partnering with a porn star. And this girl's demographic is young girls. And now she's getting these like shopping center deals. And mothers are bringing their young daughters to meet a porn star. And that's what we're aspiring to be. And I've even spoken with some young girls in schools. And I've asked, what do you like about Anna Paul? And they go, well, she seems happy and she can travel. And I'm like, okay, so do you think that doing OnlyFans is the way that you can be happy and travel? And they're like, well, duh. And it's like, how are we training our young women to think that, number one, to be liked and loved and rewarded in this world, they need to be like an Anna Paul, which means they need to do porn. And that the only way you can be happy and to travel is to do porn, because OnlyFans is porn. For people that are listening and not aware, 98% of the content on OnlyFans is pornography. So you're signing up to do porn and you're not an OnlyFans content creator. No, you are a porn creator. And I think that that's really important, again, to define those terminologies correctly so people can understand what this is. And so it's like, if you sat down, I just think in a hypothetical world with someone like Anna Paul and said, do you know that like by what you're doing, you're influencing young girls to want to do OnlyFans as well? I wonder how receptive she would be to that. And so this is where it's so hard, because it's like, again, it comes back down to like the root cause of things. What happened in her life that made her think that her only value and her only contribution to this world was to sell herself on OnlyFans? Like there was something that is inside of her that is broken, and the void that she's trying to fill that with is creating porn. And so it's like it's such a heart issue. And so again, it's like I'm fleshing it out, like just talking now. It's like, how do we as a society be able to help fix these heart issues? And I think, again, it comes down to the fact that we need to stop glorifying this in any capacity, because what is the consequence of this? We're training our children and training the next generation to think that this is okay and to think that this is normal. And then at the same time, we need to be able to love on people in such a kind and empathetic way, to be able to champion inside of them and go, do you know that your value and capacity and worth is so much more than doing OnlyFans, than doing porn, because you are literally created for a plan and a purpose, and you have a hope and a future. And it is not to get naked online and sell pictures of yourself. And what we're doing when we like these pictures, when we follow these girls, when we reward these girls, is we're reinforcing to these influencers subconsciously that this is all you're good for. And I saw that firsthand working at the agency, and literally sitting down and having a conversation with one of these girls who didn't want to do OnlyFans anymore, didn't enjoy it, but felt like that was the only thing she could do. And I was like, let's get you more involved in like the back end of the business. What are you good at? And she goes, I'm good at being hot. And I was like, nah, come on, babe. Like, tell me, like, what are you good at? She goes, no, Vic, I can't do anything. I can only do this. And I just remember the sadness in her eyes. And I'm like, this is what we're rewarding. This is what we're telling. And this girl was funny, such like cared about her family, was generous, was so kind, so goofy. And she could have she could have been a stand-up comedian, this girl. Like, she was incredible. But yet her only value, she thought, was literally doing OnlyFans. And now she's stuck in this cycle of just doing porn. So
Yeah.
it's such a multifaceted thing, isn't it? It's so like, it's just, yeah.
We have to address this holistically, comprehensively. It's not a one size fits all problem. There's not a one size fits all solution. So that's why this podcast is to discuss the many layers and bring in experts who have lived experience, so we can really hash out these problems and solutions. A lot of people are not willing to go into the depths of really exploring what the real problem is. So like you said, it sounds nice to say, let's just end the demand. Okay, from my perspective, look, I have no dog in this fight. Like, I'm not for it. Doesn't do anything for me. I'm not into it, whatever. I also am pretty if consenting adults want to consume adult entertainment, it's just not my battle. I don't think it's healthy, but I also don't think cigarettes are healthy. Cigarettes affect a lot of people around you, but I look at it the same way. I'm not here to take any freedoms from adults, but I am here to protect the innocent. So again, the topic of protecting children is a very clearly outlined, we should not cross that barrier. But when it comes to adults doing adult things, right? What I'd like to see is more of these advocacy groups that are, for example, anti-porn. Are they, though, supporting these women who think that that type of entertainment is their only option? Are we giving them alternatives? Are we setting alternate career paths and helping them retool, basically re-education, to help them develop other skill sets that can make income, help their family, etc., and giving them a different path? I see that as one, necessary part of this solution. If we're going to say we can't do this anymore, it's not good for society, what's their alternative? I'm talking about the content creators or the porn stars, right?
Yeah.
What are we offering them? Now, when we talk about the demand, again, this is just not something I can really speak to, but I know that since the beginning of time, like the first hieroglyphics, the drawings on caves were naughty pictures. So from a realistic standpoint, I don't see that demand from adults going away. At least in the United States, it's constitutionally protected, right? It's like going to a strip club or anything else. I don't like strip clubs, so I don't go there. End of story for me. Now, children don't belong in a strip club. Let's just draw that line in the sand, right? However, strip clubs don't come knocking at my door. So in the online space, when we're talking about pop-ups and advertisements that actually promote this type of behavior to people that otherwise might not encounter it, again, that's where we get into sticky problems, and specifically when we're talking about children. So when we're talking about, the demand and the supply, everything pretty much comes down to money. Let's be honest, right? Will the demand go away? I'm not sure. But what if we were to put out more education about the consequences? So this is typically targeted to children and young people who look at that lifestyle and think that's cool. They can travel and look hot everywhere. However, they're probably not aware that once you put that content out on the internet, it is there to stay. It will never go away. You do not have control of it, whether it's a picture in a bikini or partially nude or fully nude, whatever it is, whether you text it to a boyfriend or a friend or you post it on some paywall platform. that data is on the internet to stay. So it may haunt you for the rest of your life. If you choose a different career path later, you probably will not be able to take down that history, that content of. And that's unfortunate. That's not fair. That's reality, though. Not only does that mean it is likely that their entire family will see that content, even if they think it's somewhere private, it means it's there to stay. And if they change their career path, it might bite them later. So I think
Yeah.
children really need to understand that's a big consequence, because a lot of them don't understand that. They think Snapchat, messages disappear, therefore it's gone. No, sir, it lives on the internet forever. And then
Mm.
also, what are the empowering alternatives? What are we showing children as an alternative for this glorified lifestyle? Are we showing them examples of not only like boss women feminists? I'm talking about women or people that they relate to who can do powerful things that are not sexualizing themselves. Are they seeing those
Yeah.
examples? I know there are many in our society, and I know that these platforms and algorithms tend to show us interesting things instead of necessarily healthy, normal behaviors. So again, I'm back to the responsibility of these big tech companies. They're
Mm.
not at fault for hiring a whole army of developers that are literally dedicated to keep us glued to their platforms. That's how that works. However, when it comes to children on their platform, recently there was a Senate bill in the United States. I'm not sure if you're aware that they're now talking about how to keep kids safe on social media and the implications of these very aggressive algorithms that essentially redirect their focus. So let's say they start looking at, cute pictures of cats, and then it goes into cats chasing mice, and now like it leads them down these different paths that can divert their attention, and it feeds them more content to keep them on the platform. Point one, isn't it ridiculous that we're just now as a society saying we should think about children and their safety in this whole like we've created
Yeah.
the internet? Like, wow, better late than never, I guess, but like here's my applause, right? Also, there should be a different standard when it comes to adults who can choose and consent whether or not to spend that much time on that platform, on that content, right? Adults can more or less fend for themselves. Now, again, there's a lot of work we can do there to educate and prevent exploitation, but specifically with children, why are tech companies getting away with
Mm.
promoting this behavior to children? Why would they not promote healthy, productive behaviors? Now, we know that the answer is because that's what sells. That's what intrigues people. That's what keeps people on their platform. But where's the line when it comes to protecting children and profiting off their users?
Mm.
So have you seen examples of influencers or, people like OnlyFans creators or others who have successfully shifted their content to promote healthier messages?
Yeah, I have. I was just thinking, I was like, I need a minute, but I know, yes, yes. So, I have specifically one of my friends here in Australia, and she was on Married at First Sight. She was one of our biggest escorts, and she was on OnlyFans. And in February of this year, she had just a life changing experience, and she came to her faith. And through her faith journey, she's been able to really understand like who she is and like all of this, like just the negatives of what she's been doing. And so now she's actually just completely transformed her social media page in exactly that way and going, guys, I thought that this was a positive. I thought that this was good. But no, 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 no. My goodness, I was doing this because I had a hole inside of myself. And now, yeah, her name's Haley, is just absolutely killing it and being such an example of what it means to really know your identity and to not fall for these things. And so people like that, I think there's that Nara Smith, is that her name? That had the whatever clip that went viral of her being like, I love cheating. And like she was this OnlyFans girl, and she's had a complete heart change as well. And she's like, guys, like this isn't what you think it is. And so I think that we'll see a lot more of that. And I think that the beauty is in this social media era that we will be able to see these people transform. And so I think that the beauty is a lot of people get to go along for these transformative journeys with people, and they can see it for themselves on social media. And so again, I agree with you 100%. I think that it's like to be proactive and realistic. It's like, while I guess like to split things into two, these things are happening and people, more and more people will inevitably be shifting and understand the consequences of doing this. What can
Right.
we do to protect kids? So it's not like, okay, well, we have to wait for them to grow up and then realize it's bad. No.
Yeah.
And I think that you're 100% right. It's like, how can we educate them? How can we, when I go into schools and talk to, literally, I was with a bunch of 14-year-old girls the past 2 weeks. And it's about, again, getting them to understand that what you see on social media is so intentional, it's so curated. The point of it is to make you feel bad. The point of it is so then you think that this is what you need to do to be liked, rewarded, and loved. And I asked a lot of the girls for some feedback, or they just came up and were chatting with me or through messages and whatever. And a lot were like, whoa, I had no idea, like this thing called soft influence. And again, it's about educating them. What is soft influence? Well, soft influence is when you do go and you scroll and you see all these girls being liked and rewarded. So it just subconsciously makes you think that that's what's normal. Where a hard influence is if I put a picture in front of you and said, you have to do that. And so explaining the differences so then they can identify these things as they're growing up. And again, giving them the tools to go, do you know that if you send a photo under the age of 18, even if it's to another boy, it is child exploit, like sexual exploitation material. And there is, here in Australia anyways, up to a 2-year jail sentence for that. So it is illegal. And it is like, so just, and then I had a lot of girls tell me that they've already, 14-year-olds had boys pressure them to do this. A poor girl had a boy say, if you don't send me pictures, I will take my own life. And then he leaked these photos of her. And I'm like, this, you can charge him for that. That's not okay. And so, and then I had another girl tell me that, like, she didn't know that and she has had boys pressure her, but now she knows what to do. Now she has the language. And it was even just giving these girls basic sentences. Do you know what to say if a boy, you can just say no, just no. And that's it, and block them. It's as simple as that. Or you can say, please stop. I don't find, like, I'm not comfortable with this or whatever. And so it is just about coming in young and really educating them and getting them to understand that there are boundaries you can put in place. Not everything you see on social media is real, and that there are tools that you can use to be able to have a healthy life. And another one, I just think for anyone listening as well, to talk about children specifically, um, I had sat down with a child psychologist and she was telling me, different to my sister-in-law, another one, and her name's Karen, and she was telling me in 30 years of working with young girls, she's never seen the bullying and the mental health as bad as she has now. And so she, yeah. And so she suggested to me, she's like, I think you really need to focus as well on championing community when you go into school. So, and that's something that I have learned in doing this as well, is that we are teaching our young girls through this competitiveness of rewards on social media for some weird reason that we're actually in competition with each other.
Right.
And if she gets that amount of likes, then that means I get less. Or if she gets that attention, it's this weird, and this,
Valuable. Right.
yeah. And so I think another thing that we can do to be able to protect our children again is championing community, championing the importance of friendships, and saying to our young girls, and that's what I've been speaking to them about the past couple of weeks of, do you know how important and valuable friendships are? Because when that boy decides that he wants to pressure you and you're feeling that pressure, to have your circle, have your community, and you can message them and go, oh my gosh, Jim wants me to send him a picture, I don't know. Then your friends can go, babe, no, you're worth more than that. You know that you don't need to do that. Like, he's a loot, like, not in a mean way. You know what? Like, girl, teenage
Yes.
talk.
Yes.
And
And
then,
reinforce it. Absolutely.
yeah, and I think that that's one that's almost slid under the rug, and I wasn't aware of that coming
Mhm.
into this either, how bad this is. And so I
Right.
think as well, we really need to be championing again community and friendships. And I think about it, and I'm like, why are women being so targeted for this? Because we're the major ones for sexual exploitation. We're the ones who are getting, yeah, sexualized online. We're the ones that it's like, tear women down, don't build each other up. And I'm like, it's because there is so much power in the community of women, and there is so much power in us being friends and us loving each other and liking each other. And if we are able to hold each other to a better standard and be more accountable to each other instead of tearing each other down, a lot of these problems will be mitigated. And I think that if we can instill that in our young girls, the power of friendships, the power of loving each other. And I saw that even from yesterday in our second session. And that's kind of an exercise that I do with these young girls to really foster community and vulnerability and friendship. And by the end of it, I had 120 girls that traditionally were in different groups and not really friends with this girl or whatever. And they're championing each other and they're giving each other compliments. And they would come up to me and say, oh, that girl that I was in a group with, I actually had a fight with. And, so it was kind of a bit awkward, but we got to talk, and then able to give her tips of, well, have you thought about that? Have you reconciled? Have you that maybe? And then you could see the little cogs turning in her brain to be like, okay, like I'm going to. And so I think that that's something as well that's really important. I guess this is a little bit older, but I guess from a young age, if we can instill that as well, the importance of friendships and, we're for each other, not against each other, that could also really, really help to just mitigate a lot of these problems.
100%. And again, I want to emphasize the importance of that communication, not only from parents, but from family members, from aunties, from uncles, and, ideally influencers. I'd love to see more of that being promoted. And so, for example, that woman that you mentioned who has really changed around, I think not only with kids, like if you tell them something's not allowed, it's probably going to make them more curious, right? So
Yeah.
don't take drugs. They're like, what's drugs, right? But if you say, here's a picture of someone that looks really messed up and has no teeth and looks like they're living a terrible life, do you want to look like this? And they say no, right? So sometimes you
Yeah.
have to help them understand the consequence, not in a way to try to scare them and fear mongering, but to show them the reality of it. So again, in an age appropriate way, and that depends on the age group, of course, I want to see more influencers and people that are working with children in this way not only talk about the risk of sharing data online and how pictures are there to stay, sharing stories about, hey, someone sent a picture to their boyfriend, they shared it all over the school, everybody saw it, including the kids' parents, and it just kind of puts this like, oh my God, like they put themselves in those real situations. Or, someone sent this on a website, it got shared around the internet, now it's everywhere, that is never going to go away. If you want to run for president later, that's still going to be there on the internet, and someone's going to use that later. But then also that whole pressure that you're talking about, that social pressure. So I want to see every young child empowered with the knowledge that, first of all, they don't need to fall for that. Just like you're saying, they can say no. So even, in their world of what matters to them, oh, but this boy said he won't talk to me again, or he'll threaten some terrible thing, or there's some other type of consequence, letting them know, first of all, that's not right. That's not healthy. That's not a healthy interaction. And two, whatever threat of consequence, that's not your problem. We've seen this in things like sexting and exploitation, where some spammer will either pretend to be a child or manipulate the child into sending nude images and then say, if you don't send me, $5,000, I'm going to send this to your whole family or whatever. Unfortunately, there's a lot of children who have unalived themselves because of they just can't face those consequences and they internalize it. They don't want to tell anyone. They don't want to ask for help. They feel so much shame. So I'm not saying to, normalize the discussion. I'm saying to be proactive with that discussion with children. Hey, if this happens, first of all, it's not okay. Also, here's what you can do about it. You can come to me as a parent. I'm not going to get you in trouble. If somebody's threatening you, making you feel uncomfortable, making you feel like you have to do something, come and tell me. I will not get you in trouble. So this is a whole, shout out to the parents, because it's a very difficult job. Your child needs to know that they can come to you and that you will listen, full stop. You will listen, you will take it seriously, and you will take appropriate action. That shouldn't necessarily mean like taking the kid's phone away and punishing the child. It may mean locking down the phone and blocking a lot of people, etc. But what I'm saying is the child needs to know you're their go-to. They can come to you and be vulnerable about whatever they're facing and however they're feeling about it, and that you will help them solve that problem. So I've had this conversation with many young people that say, when I'm undercover pretending to be a child on the internet working with law enforcement, we see all these predators coming in. We see all this kind of stuff. They send me this is dark and nasty. They send me pictures of other kids and they go, oh, yes, you need to know that your data is not safe. No matter if it's your boyfriend or a stranger, you cannot trust your data to be safe on the internet. Now, another layer of that. So, talking about how it gets shared around, how family and friends get involved, etc. These are real stories, all of these things. Acting undercover as an undercover junior decoy with other fully grown women pretending to be children. We're often in a room together, sitting together, and you have to like lower your vibration in order to even, get into this mode to chat with these persons. Like it's a whole, like I get real Tourette'sy, like it's this whole thing. Okay. It's disgusting. And I'm a grown woman, and it is horrendous to see what children see on the internet. Let me just put that PSA out there. Also, often when we get these nasty, nasty things, like just I'm being way too calm about how disgusting some of these descriptions are, okay? And sometimes we'll be like, oh, this guy said this disgusting thing. And another woman will be like, oh my God, this guy said the same thing to me. We will compare, and often the same predator is multitasking, sending the same disgusting messages to multiple children throughout the day, throughout the week. Like, we don't know if they're overseas, we don't know if they're local, but my point is actually in these operations, we narrow down our geo targets to like a 60-mile radius of this small town. So they could still manipulate that and pretend to be there when they're not. But my point is that children cannot unsee that type of predation, whether it's just online or whether it comes in person and they meet up at the local park or whatever. They need to know the risks, but they also need to know that there are bad guys on the internet trying to hurt children. So here's how I explain it. I don't have children very close to my nephews and my niece. And like you said, that story at the beginning, I I will make sure my niece does not grow up in the world that I've seen while I'm pretending to be a child on the internet. Over my dead body will she grow up in that world.
Yeah.
When my very intelligent 8 and 9-year-old nephew with his very intelligent brain makes a great case for why he should have a phone, because all his friends have a phone and you can trust me and I'm only going to look at educational content, and he makes up this whole case about
Oh, bless.
I know, and he's going to be a lawyer when he's older. Like, he makes such a good case, and I'm like, here's the thing, buddy. It's not that I don't trust you. It's that I don't trust the internet with you. He knows that his auntie works with good guys who take down bad guys that are trying to hurt children. See, this is how I appropriate what
Yeah.
I'm wanting him to understand. I work with good guys like law enforcement to find bad guys that are on the internet looking for children to hurt. And there are a lot of them, and it's bad and disgusting, and I will not let you guys be exposed to that. So the reason I'm checking your devices, the reason I'm installing these apps to monitor what you're doing, the reason I don't allow you to use certain apps, the reason I'm involved is because I've seen bad guys trying to hurt children, and I'm here to protect you. So I want you guys to have fun and, get cool entertainment and education, and there's a lot of great things about technology. And I will continue to be very involved, as will your mom, because we know what's out there and it's our job to protect you. So see how I'm not taking away his freedoms. I'm not saying the internet is bad and piquing his curiosity at like, what
Like,
should I
talk
go
about
there?
it? Yeah.
Because, right, it's inevitable that my nephew will encounter adult sexual entertainment. I'm sure he has to some extent already, just because of how the internet is. But having these conversations, opening up that communication line, lets them know there's a real risk. You're on their side as a protector, not to try to take away their fun, but to protect them. And they can come talk to me about anything. They know they can talk to their mom. They know they can talk to their auntie. I'm going to listen. I'm going to be honest with them. I'm going to take them seriously, but I am here to protect them. So I want to help empower more parents and guardians and caretakers to have that type of influence on children, right? We should have that open line of communication. It doesn't need to be an awkward conversation. It should be an ongoing conversation, though, where we really inform them about the risks and their responsibility to not only protect themselves to some degree, but to come report when something's weird, scary, uncomfortable, because we're the adults and we'll handle it for them.
Yeah, I have a little bit of like a side thing that I kind of just want to address when I've had conversations like this with people. And I think that this might be, I'm hoping useful for parents as well. Like, what we're specifically talking about is like child predators. And I know that this is a conversation that's kind of happening at the moment about, do we get predators these child dolls and then they can act things out on the dolls, or like do we start to misuse terminology because this is like a mental disorder and so we need to treat it in these ways and stuff like that. And I think, and I've had conversations with people that have these good intentions and thinking, well, if they do it with that, then they're not going to do it on kids and blah 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 and all this. And yeah, I just want to like make it abundantly clear that that's not the case in any way, shape, or form. If we start to fluff around the terms of this stuff, we're actually nullifying the severity of what this is. I think it's like child attractive person sin or something, just like really wrong. Thank you.
Yeah.
And when we start to mess around with our words, we start to blur lines. These are people that, yes, are not healthy, but that doesn't mean that it reduces the severity of what they're trying to do. And throwing something like a doll at them doesn't actually nullify their needs and wants, but it actually heightens it. Because even when you watch pornography or anything like that, just for people that maybe aren't aware of this, but it makes you want to act out more because you get desensitized. And so if we start saying, let's just get dolls for kids, like these people and whatever, no, you're actually going to make the problem worse, because they're going to now be able to act out these fantasies, or people that are maybe never even enticed, but now they know that they can get a doll and it piques their curiosity, as you're talking about. And now they're like, oh, well, I've done it with a doll. Now I want to go it on a real child. And so I think that as well, just in this conversation, people need to be really aware that these solutions are not solutions. And this is actually going to make the problem so much more worse. And as you're talking about, we need to be open. We need to be brutally honest. We need to educate our children, have these conversations, not think that we can put our head in the sand. Because if you're not educating your child, someone or something else will. And that doesn't mean it's a positive. And doing and thinking that we can softly advocate for, maybe we'll do this and it'll help the problem. No. So just for any parent that's listening, if you hear people say stuff like that, like, can't we just get these people dolls or call them minor? Explain to them that no, that actually makes the problem worse, because it means people can act this out and then they'll therefore want to go and do it on children even more. Just to, like, I think it's all, just throw that out there.
In even more hardcore because I just want to applaud everything you say and add to it. Like, this is, I'm gonna go there. Okay. Why would we try to make that pretty? As a survivor of intense child abuse and trafficking, there is no reason to make child rape pretty. Would we make the rape of an adult pretty? Would we try to find a word for it or excuse it like a mental disorder? Or would that be extremely insensitive to every victim and survivor? Why would we try to make it pretty or try to excuse that behavior, whether or not it is the result of a mental disorder or an obviously very disturbed individual? Under what circumstances would we try to find a way to accommodate those people in our society? It is not only rape, it is straight up a violation of every human right. A child can never consent, and adults are not allowed to abuse that. Now, I'm also going to talk specifically to any religious people or Bible believers, because, like, here's a very long story short. I was born and raised in an international religious cult. It was actually a Christian cult. Christians don't like hearing that, but 100% of the bad people who were abusing around 25,000 of us children did it in the name of God and Jesus and the Bible. However, I am mature and healed enough to understand that it wasn't God and Jesus and the Bible abusing us. It was people abusing power. It was people operating under the guise of God said this is love and good for you, and this is God's highest will. Let me specifically zone in on our responsibility to not only face this, but to call it like it is. So well-meaning people will say, I'm so sorry that happened to you, but you know what, those weren't real Christians. And I say, yeah, cool story. But where are the real Christians? Because here's the thing, in the Bible, Jesus did not play. There were 2 times in the Bible that Jesus got very gangster. One was the one time he went to church as an adult and he flipped tables and kicked ass. And that was
Yeah.
the other time was when he was speaking to a crowd of people, and there were some children that wanted to come through, and they wouldn't let the children through. And he said, it would be better for you to hang a millstone around your neck and to drown in the bottom of the sea than for you to offend one of these little ones. That verse, a variation of that verse, is repeated in the Bible 3 times. Also, he meant it. Also, here's what I find so interesting, because I'm big on words and terms, right? A millstone, for those who don't know, is a massive, almost 2,000-pound stone that is scientifically impossible to lift and put on somebody's head. But if you were to do it, you would definitely drown very quickly. So the point is that it wasn't a common punishment in those days, but it seems to me like a very, I'm going to call it gangster threat, because normally Jesus was very peace and love. But in this one instance, it was his way of saying, don't let me catch you messing with a child. He did not mince words. And by the way, he used the word offend, not violate or defile or something worse. He said offend, which is a very broad term. And it was very clear how he felt about that. So whether or not you believe in whatever you believe in, this is a call to action. We should not be afraid to speak up for children, and we should never allow anybody to try to make the abuse and exploitation of children pretty or soft or normalized, because it is never acceptable. That's my soapbox.
know, I love it. I love it. And I love what you said about it is true. And people of faith, I remember one of the catalysts for me changing my life is I heard someone say, and I wasn't of faith in any capacity, that Christians are called to be the salt and the light of the earth. Now, salt preserves things. And so, as Christians, true, genuine followers of Jesus, our calling on our life is to be the salt and the light. That means to preserve this world and to be a light in it. And it is just so true in so many ways that we, if you follow and love Jesus, the authority that you have here on earth is just something that you can't even imagine in such a healthy way. And we have the capacity to be able to take down these type of things. There's a scripture that says our struggle isn't against flesh and blood, but against, like, the dark forces and the principalities of this world. And that's what we're talking about here. And we have the capacity to do that. And it's about being bold, and it's about doing it from such a position of gentleness, humility, and love and patience. And I think that if a lot more people of faith were championed with that, but there is so many. And that's, I think, the beautiful thing as well, is I think about personally just in this journey, there are so many strong, legitimate people of faith that are doing crazy things, but they're the unsung heroes. They're the ones that are underground. They're the ones that every single day their boots are on the ground doing this type of stuff. And so if we can champion more people, I think that that is such a beautiful thing to be able to say that, hey guys, there is a very specific calling on people that specifically what we're talking about identify with Jesus and identify with their faith, that you are called to be the salt and the light of this earth. So you do have the capacity and the authority to be able to make major changes in this world. And I encourage anyone to be able to do that, because every single person deserves to live a life freed, a life of love, and a life that is protected, and a life of joy and a life of peace. And so I definitely agree as well. Absolutely, that a lot more people could be doing a lot more things in this world, and we all need to. And if we do it from a posture and a position of love, that's never going to be tainted.
Right. And if children see that example, not only will they see that it's possible, but if they see that it's empowering, it actually,
Mm.
I've had children call me a superhero, which is super cute, but it's
Oh,
also
that's so cute.
children, you're a superhero. And, it's just they're being cute, but it's like children should see that that's possible, that a petite, smiley female, right? I'm not a big, tough, tactically trained dude, but yeah, this little light of mine is out there eradicating darkness. So, like, with all the love in my heart, what's anybody else's excuse for not standing up for the innocent? Now, I
Mm.
completely believe, I know for sure, all of us can do something to be part of the solution. Not everybody is
Yeah,
called to do the exact same thing. I'm not asking everybody to dedicate their entire life like I've chosen to do,
yeah,
but I am challenging every single person to do something. It's not about just the parents or just religious people or whatever. It's our shared responsibility.
yeah. It's
I also
everyone. Yeah.
believe, I know in my heart, hurt people, as we all know. And a lot of hurt people hurting people in our society today. I also know that healed people heal people. That means that not only have we seen and overcome that darkness, it means we are intolerant of that darkness. We're not afraid of it. It's not a big, scary boogeyman to us. We laugh in its face. And we want everybody to come to know the light, the truth, what is actual empowerment, not some kind of quick fix. Now, I also want to share something about child predators, about people who abuse vulnerable people and specifically children. I rarely make general sweeping statements like this, but this one is true. 100% of the time, a man or woman who would abuse a child is a weak, pathetic coward.
Mm.
100% of the time. You will never find a strong man or woman abusing a child. Now, a lot of times we have this fear of the unknown or of these big, scary traffickers or these, oh no, what if I. A lot of grown ass men have looked me in my face and said, wow, I can't believe you do this. That must be so scary. What if they come after you? Oh no, that must be so scary. And, I have to like massage them into the truth. But here's the reality. Right? I'm not a big, tough, scary looking dude like you. And we should not fear this darkness.
Mm.
Children who cannot consent, who cannot advocate for themselves, they get to be afraid of the dark. We don't get to stand in the corners and be afraid to think about the scary things happening to children on a daily basis when we're talking about child trafficking and exploitation. There's a lot of people that are like, that doesn't involve me. I don't want to think about that. That's too gross.
Mm.
Okay, cool. You don't get to be afraid of the dark. You get to turn on the lights. Children don't have that option. It is up to us not only to preserve generations to come, like you're talking about being the salt of the earth. What does that mean? To preserve, not only to preserve their innocence, because once innocence is lost, it cannot be regained.
Yeah.
What are we doing to set them up for success in our future? Are we showing them that society values them dancing like an adult and sexualizing themselves for hearts and things, gifts from strangers on the internet, that that's the best way to make a career? Or are we showing them what true empowerment means, the impact that it has, and what they can do just by, grit and perseverance? So I would love to see us as a society gravitate towards those people who have that type of positive influence, not only on adults, but specifically because we as adults are setting the example that future generations are going to follow. And
Mm,
what kind of example do we want them to see?
mm. Yep. Couldn't agree more. No, I love it. I love it so much.
I love this conversation because, again, it's not a quick fix. It's not an easy, topic to really address. But when you unpack the layers, I have a way of oversimplifying things in order to really come to the core of what is the real issue here.
Mm,
So I love how, we started out with this, and I want to circle back now in closing to, okay, again, children are a completely different category when we talk about they should not be sexualized, full stop, end of story. Now, for adults, when we're talking about the realm of adult sexual entertainment, I would love to see more examples of how to empower adults, not only with that self love and self worth, but what does that really mean? For
mm.
women especially, what is our value? What do we want to portray to the world? And are we feeding this narrative that sexualization is value? Now, I'm not putting the responsibility of, for example, the demand on, women who create that type of content, but
Mhm.
are we creating a world that we want our children to thrive in? Are we creating the type of influence that we want our children to follow? Whether it's online or in person, are we setting them up for success by showing them what their true value really is and empowering them with that community that you were talking about to help them navigate this very complicated, confusing society that we've left for them? Are we there for them in community support? Are we helping them to know they're not alone? Are we educating them about the risks and helping them prevent it? Are we showing them that we will listen and show up for them and that they can trust us with those difficult to navigate moments in their life?
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you the floor just to close us out. I've loved this discussion, and there's so many more things we could talk about here, but
I
just to,
know.
what are some of the most, important takeaways you want parents and caretakers to know about whether social media or online influence, and how kids and young people can be manipulated into that life of exploitation that they may not be aware about?
Mm. I just want to say before, like, we do close out, your like passion has like fired me up. Like, it's 9 a.m. here in Australia, but I'm like, I'm ready. I don't know for what, but like, let's go. Like, I just love it. I love it. And I love you're just so wise with asking these really good questions to get people thinking, And I do, oh my gosh, I just love, even just like through the camera, I'm like, your energy is so good. I just want to cuddle you. um
I can tell.
but for anyone listening, I think as well, specifically for, I guess, to maybe hit just two people that could potentially be listening to this right now, for the young adults that maybe aren't necessarily parents, and maybe you've listened to a couple things today and you're like, oh yeah, you know what, I do fall for that, or I do go on my social media and it does make me feel like trash. I do feel more inclined to want to post these things or send things to men or whatever. I just hope that this conversation is opened up your eyes a little bit to understand that it is so intentional, it is so curated. Majority of the girls that are even posting these things don't necessarily want to, and they probably have something like an OnlyFans agency that's working behind them, that's actually the ones that are forcing them to post this type of content with the intent of making it go viral, so then they can get more subscribers to their OnlyFans. And so a lot of the things that you see on social media, even that girls are posting, they probably don't want to post, but there's some sort of obligation behind it, that's why they're posting these things. And so I hope that means that you'll just take a minute, and the next time you see that girl that you follow or that viral post, you're going to go, wait a minute, that's fake, that's curated. That girl probably doesn't even like to post these things, but she has to because she feels like she has to, because maybe there's an agency that's working behind her that's forcing her to. Or this is how she gets her income. This is the only option she has. Wow, that sucks. And I'm hoping that it just kind of shatters that narrative a little bit for people. And so that's for the females, and for the males. Now, hey, this stuff is actually curated. It's very intentional. It's done to manipulate me. It's done to make me want to go to that softest essence of myself, that weakest part of me, so people can exploit me for money. And so that's what we need to kind of put that as the lens on of everything we see on social media that is leading us to that link. It's actually leading you to be exploited by major companies that just want to use you for your money. And I think that that's a really good thing for the lens of when we're on social media to look at for parents. I think it's as well understanding why this stuff is wrong, how this stuff is dangerous. If you encourage it, it is hurting your children. And to have those awkward conversations, the younger, the better. If your child is using any type of device, you need to be talking to them. If they are under the age of like 7, I really do encourage you to be with them at all times on their device, because you just don't know what is going on. This stuff is real. It's not to doomsday, it's not to scare, but it's to educate and highlight and hopefully equip you guys to be able to protect your children. And again, there's so many tools, there's so many resources out there. If you have any other questions, like anyone that's listening, you can always actually just DM me. I'm always happy to answer things. But even a simple Google of like parental like apps to put on my kid's iPad, and abundance of resources will come up for you. It's not difficult, it's not hard to find. But again, if you're not educating your child, something or someone will, and I can almost guarantee it that it will not be a positive thing. You're not going to have a stranger on the internet message your kid and be like, "Hey, do you know what to do if something pops up that makes you feel bad?" No. So I think we just need to be realistic, be honest, not put our heads in the sand, take accountability. And if you have friends that are struggling and they're like, "Oh, if I just don't tell my kid about it, if I don't this, I don't that." I feel like this is a good anecdote to leave on, and I'm hoping that people can draw the connections between this. But as I've become public with my story and everything like that, and I speak about how I was exposed to drugs at 14 years old, and my mum sat down with me, and she goes, "I never knew that you did drugs." And I was like, "Wow." I was like, "It's pretty obvious." She goes, I always knew you struggled with alcohol, but I never thought that you would have done drugs." And I was like, "Why?" And she goes, "Because I just didn't think that you would." I was like, "Well, did you ever actually educate me on why this was bad or what to do?" I was exposed to cocaine at 14 years old, and I never had that conversation. And she goes, "I never thought to have it with you. I just thought you would have known." And I said to her, I was like, "Mum, if you didn't educate me, something or someone would have. And then I got exposed at 14 years old to Coke. What did you think was going to happen?" And
Right.
she goes, "Oh." And so being one of those parents, the whole point of that is being one of those parents that just assumes it is never a positive for your child in any capacity. If my mum had sat down with me, even at maybe 16, which was a better age, and said, "Hey, do you know what to do if someone offers you drugs?" I would have said, "Oh my gosh, it happened at 14. I'm struggling now. I take drugs all the time. Help me." Like, who knows what that could have mitigated. And
Exactly.
so yeah, the whole point of that is with your child, you need to do the same. You cannot assume, especially in this day and age, with social media, with this digital era we live in, because it's your responsibility. Honestly, you've had a child, you need to take the responsibility to parent them well. And this is one of those steps that I think that every single parent needs to take that accountability. As harsh as that may sound, I don't mean it harshly, I mean it in love.
Realize that we're not out here fighting for ourselves. We are literally trying to warn people of the reality of what their children are going to face. So I really appreciate you not only being vulnerable, but sharing those types of real stories, because there's a lot of well meaning parents. And look, life is busy. It's hard enough to be a parent today, but all these different things you have to look out for. We just want people to know that avoiding the topic doesn't make it go away. Pretending like it's not going to happen doesn't make it not happen. So we want
Yeah.
you to be the one to have these conversations with your kid and develop that trust and that open line of communication so that your kid knows they can come to you, they can tell you about it, be honest, and that you'll help them through it. So again, it's that communication line that has to be developed. That's an
Yeah.
ongoing process. We want to encourage you to do it. I have one last bonus question, and it's segue, but I don't want to miss this conversation because, okay, in summary, the adult entertainment industry is just like not my space. I don't have lived experience there, but I'm really focused on how to protect children. So I've been
Yeah.
doing a lot of research with different online platforms. For example, one that reached out to me that I was super skeptical about, and I was literally like, "No thanks, bye," when they first reached out. It's a investment conglomerate called Ethical Capital Partners, which owns a company called ALO, which used to be known as MindGeek, which owns Pornhub and a lot of the largest porn websites. I don't even know all their names. MindGeek was acquired by Ethical Capital Partners, ECP, in March of 2023. So, just a real quick history because I'm getting to this point of, does OnlyFans prevent children from accessing their content, and what are their methods if so? So let me explain what these guys have done because, again, I was very skeptical. I did extensive research. They gave me a whole tour of their trust and safety. And in the United States, we have NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They do annual reports showing the exploitation reports, child sex abuse material that was found or reported on all these different platforms. In 2023, NCMEC's 2023 report, which is public, confirmed that there was zero child sex abuse material found on all of ALO's platforms. Now, what ALO has done, I'll just call them Pornhub because that's what everybody's familiar with, but they own a bunch of different sites. They have eradicated child sex abuse material from their platform. Now, like, full stop. I'm not here to advocate for porn, of that industry, for that company. They don't pay me. But they've eradicated child sex abuse material using technology to identify and make it go away. And I've done extensive interviews. People can look that up as far we unpack the how and the why. Now, if they've done it, here's my point. If they've done it, Google and Meta and TikTok and Snapchat and all these other platforms have zero excuse to have any child sex abuse content on their platform. By the way, did you know that Google Images has more pornography than all of Pornhub? Did you know you can search for and find terms on Google Images that you are not allowed to search for on Pornhub? Like, this kind of stuff is mind-blowing, but it's also, again, when we're really delving into the problems and solutions without any type of bias, but really saying, okay, how do we solve these problems? Technology exists that can eradicate child sex abuse material. Now, there's a lot of controversy around age verification laws, and certain states in the United States have implicated these requirements. I think it's 16 states right now, only for porn sites that require people to verify their age. Now, I am for age verification. That's a whole other story, though, about whether or not it's effective and all the different layers that are needed. But here's my point. If we're only requesting the age verification on sites that are actual porn sites, but we're not safeguarding the internet, Google Images, Twitter, Meta. For example, in NCMEC's 2023 report, Meta had 17 point something million reports of child sex abuse material. Pornhub had zero. ALO's platforms had zero. Google had like 1.3. So my point is that you see where I'm going with this. Like, this is a big problem and a very solvable problem. So just with your experience with OnlyFans, from what you know, do they have technology in place that has eliminated child sex abuse material, or is that a problem they're still dealing with? And would they be open to talking about solutions?
So here's the interesting thing with OnlyFans is I didn't work like for OnlyFans. I worked for an agency that promoted girls' OnlyFans accounts. So it's a third party type of thing. And they're very underground because, again, you're impersonating the girl. You're pretending to be a girl on her behalf. And the whole allure of OnlyFans is that you're talking to the girl one-on-one. So with that, we never had direct conversation necessarily with someone from OnlyFans. But also it's very difficult. Even if you're trying to like close an account as a girl or whatever, you can't like talk to like an OnlyFans representative. Like on YouTube, you have someone.
Owners.
Yeah. And so just with that being said, my personal experience, I never saw any of this type of material. They have this on OnlyFans, they flag words. So there's specific words that you can't use. But with that being said, to say that from my experience, what I saw, like to be able to go on to OnlyFans and like sign up, it's the easiest thing ever. Like anyone can do it type of thing. There's nothing to stop a child from doing it. And then as well, yeah, to be able to post some sort of content that was of a child. I don't know if they have any type of technology that does like scan what the material is, but
or whatever.
anything. But I never saw any child. So I know it's a bit of a hard one to comment on. I never saw anything like that. But from what I know about like just the policies that they have, I would make the assumption that there's nothing on there in an official capacity to protect children.
Yeah, because I wouldn't assume that you would see it, because generally you'd have to that content out, but I'm more interested in what are the prevention steps. Do they require age verification of each uploader or each piece of content? For
Oh,
example,
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, there's nothing like that. There's nothing. So that's why I make the assumption
right.
that it probably would be something that's a bit easier to do, because even when you're uploading anything for adults, there's no protective factors in any capacity. So why would it be different?
Right. So what's
Mm.
interesting, again, I've just really looked into this one company because I've been speaking with the owners and they gave me a whole tour and they've been very transparent, which has surprised me. The DOJ, the Department of Justice, which is a government agency in the United States, also did a whole 30-month investigation and they found no illegal content. So I've just been impressed with, again, I'm like, they've solved problems. Why can't everybody else do this? So
Yeah, totally.
like they require a consent form from every model featured in every piece of content, whether or not you can see their face. So I've been asking all these hard questions and really getting to the answers because, again, like, okay, let's just make the assumption that in our lifetime, porn is not going to go away. How can we protect the innocent? That's my perspective of this. That's just me being a realist, but me also saying, okay, I don't think, this is my opinion, I don't think it's going away in my lifetime. However, we can absolutely eradicate child sex abuse material. Like, this should be done yesterday. There's no excuse for that to exist.
Yeah.
And then, point two, how can we protect the innocent? So we're talking about adults. How can we make sure they are of age and consenting to that content being posted in the first place and living there in all of its eternity? So, for example, on ALO's platform, there's a content removal request form. You can withdraw that consent after you initially gave it. Things like that I see as solutions. Now, again, these are like baby steps, but I see the things as viable solutions. And I see it as it's inexcusable then that these platforms don't have that. If the premise is that all the adults here are here of their own free will and they're all being safe and happy, okay, well, make that happen, right? Protect the innocent, make sure they consent to it and that it's ongoing consent and that you have verified their age. That's a very basic requirement. And again, it's doable. We know that because it's been done. So I'm just interested, and again, it's in this realm I never thought I'd be looking into, but
Yeah.
I tried to create you have to go through a whole process to verify every uploader, every piece of content on those platforms. I went onto OnlyFans and I created an account, and granted, most of the content is behind paywalls, but I still saw pornographic images just right there logging in. Like, I could have been looking, let's pretend people log in looking for something other than porn. But my point is that it was just right there in my face.
Yeah.
They didn't ask for any type of consent or, how old I am or anything.
Yeah.
So just an interesting, little segue there, but I'm really weeding through, who's really on the right side of history. And sometimes it's the most ironic people, I would say.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. But, again, we think like Google and Facebook, totally fine. Pornhub, bad. But
just like, wait a minute.
Right. Like, again, it's not an easy problem or solution. So it's going to be multi-layered. But anyway, dialogues like this are so important. Thank you so much for coming to this conversation, for having this conversation, for being willing to also put yourself out there. It is not always easy to be vulnerable and to be kind of the face behind a story that compels people to take action. So I want to acknowledge you and thank you for what you're doing. And I know you're going to continue to do a lot more. I can see it and I can feel you. Like, you have that spark, you have that energy, and you will continue inspiring so many people. So thank you for being that person that will motivate and give an example to a lot of young people of what they can do, of the impact that they can have in a healthy way, and be that example of someone who is truly empowered and successful by doing healthy things. I think the world needs more people like you. So thank you for being that light.
Oh, thanks, Kim. I really appreciate it. This has been a great conversation. I've enjoyed this so much. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed it as well. I look forward to having you back. Thank you again.
Thank you.